Hello, it's your host, Master Mike Ambrose, and this is the third episode of Who Killed WCW Recap Show. And today we're going to talk about the fall of 1999. It's a trying time for WCW. It's not a good time. They're in rough shape. Everything's gone to crap, let's say, to excuse my internet. WCW's becoming a crap show, if you know what I mean. And I'm saying crap because I'm PG-oriented here. It was a crap show. So Bischoff gets ousted. Bill Busch from the accounting department takes over. He had been there for the early 90s, according to Tom Zink, former pro wrestler, the late Tom Zink. And maybe he was around wrestling at the time, but he didn't seem to know what he's doing. Although the first thing he does is hire Vince Russo from WWF because he had a fall. He was felt overworked by Vince McMahon, and he felt Vince didn't care about him a lot. According to Russo, he said McMahon said hire a nanny, and he took offense at it, so he ended up taking the job with WCW. And right away, his style of writing, he never liked a lot of old wrestling. He didn't like anything more than 5-minute wrestling matches. He used to think nobody goes to see matches, and he decided to put the matches on at house shows. He said, if you want wrestling matches, go to a house show. I'm writing a TV show. That's what he said. But at the same time, you gotta have wrestling on a TV show. I want good wrestling when I want a TV show. That's why it's still called wrestling. It's called wrestling. It's not called sports entertainment. That's why I think Triple H is doing a great job as of right now with this WWF and WWE and what he's doing. But back to Russo. Style of writing was there. You had the pinata and pole match. We put a pinata and a bunch of luchadors in it. Kind of, dopey. And, winner gets a shot at the New Japan IWGP Junior Heavyweight title held by Jushin Liger. And I believe it was Juventud that won it. Juventud beat Jushin Liger with hitting the ball of tequila over the head. That wasn't getting over well. And he did, the Oklahoma parody of Jim Ross, who had Bell's palsy. Ed Ferrara played him. And stuff like that was crazy. And clash with the top guys, especially Hogan, Hulk Hogan, And Hogan had his things. And, he tried to elevate new guys. At least tried to have new guys like, Jeff Jarrett, even though it's kind of bland. You had Eddie Guerrero there. Billy Kidman. They were trying new guys, even though I don't watch him anymore, but he tried to elevate at the time, Chris Benoit. And, he did a lot of stuff. Put the title on Bret Hart at the end. Of course, that didn't work out well, for Bret. He got kicked out of Goldberg. We already covered that in the last episode. So, he did that. And, he claimed that the ratings points went up, and they kind of went up a bit. He went from 3 hours to 2 hours. They cut back a bit, but that meant they lost revenue for that third hour. So, Russo out. Because he claims Kevin Sullivan and J.J. Dillon overtook him and went over his head saying Russo wasn't doing a good job. We could do better. They took over and it was kind of slow. I mean, he tried to bring back wrestling and stuff, obviously. Kevin Sullivan. Oh, in the middle of this, the Radicalz, Kim Sullivan tried to do stuff like bring back wrestling, but it was kind of slow. And he had his handcuff issues with other stuff. And meanwhile, this going on, the Radicalz jumped to WWF. Guerrero, Benoit, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn all showed up on Raw one night, and they called themselves the Radicalz because they were radical to leave. They would jump and ship to defection to one of the big defections, probably the last big defection, because after that, it was kind of WCW was lost their heart of the company of the mid card, the guy that were the workhorse. The guys were having the great matches and all that, I think Eddie Guerrero of all those guys was the best overall talent they had. He should have been a top guy in WCW. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But yeah, they went there. The Radicalz, they would call the Revolution, the group in WCW, but then it came known as the Radicalz in WWF. Actually, when it was the Revolution, it was Benoit, Malenko, and Saturn, and Shane Douglas that were in the Revolution. Then they kicked out Benoit, and at the time, Eddie Guerrero was in the Filthy Animals. In the original meeting, when those four guys left, Conan was part of the group, Shane Douglas were in it, but they didn't get signed by WWE. They ended up going back to WCW. Yes, then he had Story, and, okay, then we had, he comes back with Russo, a few months later, comes back with Bischoff. Bischoff, realized, he's watching when the Radicalz debut. He said he was at a restaurant in Minnesota or wherever, and, he goes to his wife, Turner's going to call me back. And it did. So Bischoff returned back. He asked, would you work with Russo? And Russo, yeah. And they would. Him and Russo, they tried to work. they're going to do this New Blood versus Millionaires Club gimmick, where the New Blood, like guys like, like a good example, Booker T, Jeff Jarrett, Booker T, Jay Douglas is even kind of into a Buff Bagwell. Even though some of those guys have been around, they weren't on top, so they're kind of new, fresh on top. Rey Mysterio, Conan ended up showing back. Shane Douglas was back by them. And, it's kind of, they did the thing where they dropped the blood from the ceiling. But one time it missed, they didn't with Kevin Nash. They're going to start this new blood, red blood gimmick, blood gimmick. But the blood doesn't even, the stuff doesn't even hit Nash. It's like right next to him. It's like, he like no cells. He's like, what the hell are you doing? And he got some stuff on his hair from some of them like gone on his hair because it kind of bounced right off him. It kind of, the residue came into his face, so he had a little bit on him, and yeah, it just wasn't working out well there. Then they had the David Arquette as WWE champion, which David Arquette's a nice guy, from what I heard. Did a lot of good stuff. After he won the title, he donated a lot of money to debts of certain wrestlers, like Brian Pillman's family had been dead. I think Owen Hart, no, Brian Pillman died and Owen Hart died, but he gave like the money to the charities. So he did a lot of good there. And then the Radicalz jumped, I already brought the Radicalz. And even David Arquette goes to Booker T and said, what did you do when you first became champion? What was it like when you first became champion? And I guess he heard Booker T said, I haven't won it yet. And then he's like, oh my God, he couldn't believe it. So then even in the promo, David Arquette said, I don't deserve this title. It should be guys like Jarrett or DDP, or he even said someone like Booker T deserves it. I don't deserve the title. That's what, David Arquette was saying in this promo. If you look it up. And Booker T, even Moxley, later on says, I owe David Arquette helped me get the WCW champion, so. Storylines were just not making sense. They were all over the place. I can't believe that second run was so bad. It was just bad TV, weird, bad. They had it on Peacock, so if you want to rewatch it, get an idea what it was back then, but it was kind of crazy. And they didn't make sense. They were heading toward iceberg, and obviously there were other issues going on that, corporate side that, they didn't want WCW. Like, Brad Siegel didn't want WCW, He said it was the thing that he didn't like to work with. He had Bischoff run it, then he didn't want to do it, so that's when they brought Bill Busch in, obviously. I should have brought that up after Bischoff there, because Siegel, he didn't care for it. He just kept it on because it had good ratings, obviously, and he respected it, but he wasn't a wrestling guy at all. So, we brought to another big topic of the show, which was a big, they did a Dark Side of the Ring about this whole thing, Bash of the Beach 2000, where Hogan, Bischoff, Russo met, and it's like a thing, start off as a work, they're going to do a thing where Jeff Jarrett is Hogan versus Hulk Hogan, Jeff Jarrett, with Jeff Jarrett defending the WWE World Heavyweight title. And Hogan, I'll tell you right this is one thing you don't have, a guy should not have in his contract, creative control. Because he overturned everything. He could overturn anything, put his match on top. He held the hell cards. It's almost like you almost like run the place, kind of. And it's not good to have. I don't care who you are, what position you are, whether you're Hulk Hogan or some guy on the bottom of the card. Shouldn't have the creative control. You could have some talk on your character, obviously. Creative on your character, input on your character, and control over what you want to do for your character, like controls. But not like, I want to win this match, I want to win that match. You can put input in with your character stuff, but not like full control like that into your contract, because that's a killer right there for a company. So anyway, they were going to do a thing where Jarrett was going to lay down, Hogan was going to win the title, and Hogan and Bischoff were going to run off and act all pissed off at what happened. They were going to their plane, and then Vince was going to do a promo, and later on down the road, Hogan would come back with a title. While they was going to do a thing a pay-per-view further down the line. This was on the I think it was Halloween Havoc. This was on Dark Side of the Ring last year, or 2 seasons ago, whatever. So go back and watch that, you can hear the whole story there. I'm just giving you like the Cliff Notes version. So anyway, after that, went to that. Russo goes into the ring, cuts his promo, but started to go like crazy off the thing they were supposed to say, because he go home to yell a bastard, piece of shit, stuff like that. Sorry, piece of crap. Oh, I'll say he said the S word shit. So So he said that, and by there he said, "You'll never see that piece of you know what again." And then he said, he said, for the next guy, I'm gonna have a match in the ring for the main event. It'll be Jeff Jarrett against Booker T. And he saw how those guys worked hard and all that. It's something. It was something to see. Whew. So see right there. Sorry, I'm slowing off a bit. But yeah, that's basically what he does. And of course, before this, like Hogan and Bischoff were in their jet heading back to Clearwater. Because they were in Daytona Beach. They were flying back to Clearwater, Tampa. And while this was going on, while Russo was talking, doing his spiel, Bischoff and Hogan were heading back to Clearwater. So anyway, they're going on. They're doing that. And then they talked to Booker T, because Booker T said he didn't know till, the day of, or, maybe the day before. I don't know. And, we talked how he never won the title and all that stuff. And, there's issues why, you could debate how he won it or, what were the cause of it. But, I always thought Booker T was a great performer, without question. Great week performer. Good promo. He's getting better on promos. And he had charisma. He was a guy that they could have counted on. I mean, I think looking back, I'm going to say this right now, to avoid all this, if they were to interview new talent, once like Goldberg got on top, I think they should have elevated guys like Booker T, Chris Jericho, he was already in WWF by then, Raven, who was already in ECW by then. They could have put those guys on top. Vampiro, who was there, I think could have been a top guy. Scott Steiner. They should have put Scott Steiner right there in the mix. I think those guys right there is your top 6. You could have done something. And then maybe, I'll add one out. Eddie Guerrero and Rey Mysterio. And I know Rey Mysterio's like small, but I think he could have brought something, especially with the mask. They hadn't taken the mask off. I think things could have. That was a mistake to take the mask off of him. I mean, he could have sold a lot of masks. Look at all the masks on WWE with the kids and stuff. Kids, Hispanics. The guy's a legend. And he would have drawn money for you for years. WWE would still be around, say, if they had elevated newer guys back then. No, those guys I got back then were big time. And yeah, Jeff Jarrett, if you want to put Jeff Jarrett in the mix, if he had come on, yeah, he was good as a top guy, just didn't have the charisma. Good worker, have good matches, not a bad worker, good wrestler, has good matches, very good. He had a great match with Shawn Michaels, but not a guy you would make the top guy, Jarrett. But that's just my opinion. So yeah, Booker T, Jeff Jarrett, the WCW title. Booker T wins the WCW World Heavyweight Championship, and gets a good thing. It looks good. Right now it looks okay. We got a new champion, but by then the damage had already been done to WCW. They were heading down a slippery slope that they couldn't get out of. They started doing work shoot angles, which was go watch this. I think it's New Blood Rising. That pay-per-view was kind of crazy things. They had Goldberg get out of a finish. He was going to get jackknifed. And they pretend like he went against the script. When you write that, it's like, we all know it's a work. Just don't want to hear it tell us all the time that this will work. Yeah, and then we had that. They had something good. They would build up Scott Steiner as like a psycho heel guy, a badass heel. And he was doing a good job out of it, Scott Steiner. He was starting to become like a kind of a draw towards the end of I wouldn't say big time, but he started to be be a draw for WCW at the end. Good quarter hours getting upward. But by then, the company was kind of heading to a slippery slope, if you know what I mean. And Russo was out again. Of course, he had the cut. The match was him and Booker T for the WCW World Heavyweight Championship. And going on this whole time, he's doing New York Giant protective padding. He put a mark. He had a number 1 with Russo on the back. I mean, I get people have their own names on a jersey. I'd probably do it too if I had the time, but you don't see me whatever. I could put my name Ambrose on a Tom Brady jersey, and we're at home, but Anyway, Russo's Booker T's head out the door. Right next to his Russo. Here comes Goldberg, and bam, he spears him out. Vince Russo hits his head on the back of the barrier. Oh, and he got a concussion. Oh, it's something. He thinks that Goldberg was out to hurt him. Goldberg said he wasn't. Even though Goldberg did not like Vince Russo at all. You watch that show, he does not like Russo. Of course, nobody really. Bret Hart called him an idiot. He didn't like Goldberg either. Bischoff doesn't like him. The only guy that didn't really say anything bad about were Booker T and Conan. They say, he was a good guy. He tried to do different stuff. But, it's like that second run, he was not good. It was all out of control. And then I think Russo in October, he had one show, and then he didn't travel again. He didn't run any more shows. That was it. And, that's it for him. That was it for the episode. So that was episode 3. Now, the last one, next week, all about the end, the final Nitro, like how it all came to be. And, we all know what kind of happened there. And you'll talk about the last few months of WCW, what was going on and all that. It's quite a story. It's something to watch back on these shows, because I love WCW. It's one of my favorite companies of all time. I think, as great as, I gotta be honest, as great as those 95, 98 were for WCW, they were great. The 89 to 93 WCW was just as good. They had great wrestling. They may not have had the star power, or like they didn't have the national, like TNT show on a Monday night, but they had some great talent. And obviously Sting was there the whole time. Sting was there. Flair was there at the time. We haven't brought up Flair a lot because he's kind of quiet in all this, except for the thing with Bischoff, where he involved his late son. He was going to see his son's Reed's wrestling tournament, and then Bischoff he wanted to use a plane, and they wouldn't let him. He goes, "I'm going," and Bischoff said no. Well, then I'm taking you off TV. Flair was off TV for all he was suing Ric Flair. It was he was bad. He went off on Flair for a while there, and then Flair went off on him. It was back and forth. You look it up. I might talk about that in a future episode after the show's over, because they didn't talk about that on the series, and I'm surprised, kinda. It was something. All right, I'll be there. I'll see you soon. I'm gonna do I'll do the Massive Ice Wrestling Paradise, and I got some other stuff to talk about involving some of the Boston teams, sports teams. You obviously the Celtics won last night, so we're excited about that. All right, have a good night. Take care. Bye bye.